So Linny proceeded to knock him out too before stuffing him into that box. Afterward, Linny passed the unconscious Halsey to his accomplice through the magic box in the audience stands, before operating the devices such that Cal's death would be ruled an accident. And there you have it. That's the truth behind what happened.
Mamă, știu ce să fac?
Does the defendant's side have any objections to Lady Farina's description of the events?
The key to refuting Lady Farina is the order of events. What Linny experienced and what he saw.
Unde e mama naibii? Știu eu ce pana mea să dau aici. Habar n-am. Lenny must have been very confused when she saw.
Seems this won't produce a particularly effective rebuttal.
Wait, what? Fix asta era? Ce? De unde ne-am dat seama ce? Doar le pun că nu dau seama niciodată, dar nu percep. Nu merge nimic.
According to Linny, he left via the vent after entering the tunnel. He couldn't have had that altercation with Halsey.
Am pus-o. Am dat fel asta. Dar nu mergea niciuna la prima, what the fuck?
Linny went to the room that contained...
This is a pain. Lisk claims the head of the chamber upon the time did not witness the crime talking since. Why?
Linny did not take part in the underground altercation. He only witnessed traces of the aftermath.
Attention! Ace Detective Paimon has something to say!
Mai mult ne faci de râs. Astea sunt toate.
When the countdown started, Linny did indeed go into the tunnel. But he immediately used a vent to access the Opera House basement, which is where the underground core of the Oratrice is stored. Once he reached that area, he heard a voice in what should have been an empty room. Since he felt something was amiss, he returned immediately. The crime scene had already developed by the time he reached the tunnel again, and in order to complete the magic trick, he did not remain there for any length of time. Finally, he reached the surface, and that was when the accident happened from his point of view. Therefore, he's innocent!
Doamne, nu mai urla.
Paimon did it! Paimon actually managed to say all that! Wasn't it awesome?
In other words, you believe that he knew nothing of the incident?
That's right!
My reasoning?
If that's the case, then if Cowell hadn't entered the tunnel, who was the entire setup meant to kill? Assuming that what you say is true, Linny only needed to kidnap the young girl to cause a new disappearance case. What would the point of killing someone on stage be?
Oh, they have a point.
True. Так, acum mă întreb, they have a point here.
That's right, you tell them! And that's why they're partners of mine. They've managed to turn things around.
Bă, stă mortul. N-am făcut nimic când te-ai hotărât să fim parteneri.
Oh, well, your denial is very strident. I'll give you that. But what proof do you have to back your claims?
Aoleu. Dar tu ce dovezi ai?
Of course I do. If he had been in the magic box the whole time, how could he have not heard that sound? Why do you ask? You're saying that he wasn't?
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought?
Am uitat.
I think there's something off here.
Să mort. Să mort. Ce dracu trebuie să apuc, ce? Entrance index.
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought?
Mata. Payment. Tot în pana mea.
That's right! Linny wasn't in the box or in the tunnel. That's why he didn't hear anything strange during the performance. This means that when the crime happened, Linny had already entered the basement via the vent. The same clue you used to disprove his alibi has now become the best proof! How do you like that?
Te-aș bate eu în locul ei.
Well played. To think you'd use such logic. Well then, if it wasn't Linny who committed the crimes, then who was it?
Select and include information.
Could there have been a third person involved? Is that...
It could be a possibility, to be honest. Photos.
Halsey is the missing person and an ordinary audience member. Or did she have her own scheme all along?
O să judeci pe ăla de murit, părerea mea. Cred eu, nu pot să-l bat pe ăsta care muri. Wait, what?
The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment.
Ah, dacă gândești așa, poate, în puii mei.
Huh? That can't be right. Are you serious? The killer was, in fact, Cowell, the deceased!
Și asta sună super retardat, mai ales din gura ta.
Oh, is that so? How interesting! Let's hear your reasoning then.
What I must do next is recreate the truth. What Cowell did and how he went from would-be perpetrator to victim.
Ah, this is a pain. How can you be able to interface with the crime?
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Linny as well. Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel, so there must have been some fear that she would attract attention. No one entered or left the opera house through its entrances, so where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment. It would have been tough for both people to fit. Halsey's clothing was... The deceased's name is Cowell.
C'è morto.
No one entered or left.
Wait, what?
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent.
Unde s-a pus ăsta? Incorrect. Ce? We are dead. N-am înțeles. Mă bat minigame-urile din story-urile din jocul ăsta de multe ori. Ce titare, dar... Mă rog, poate nu știu.
What's wrong, Traveler? Are you still having trouble figuring things out?
I see how it is. So this was all just a bluff. And here I thought you had something to show for it. But it seems you're still far from the truth.
Look, since we're at a dead end, why not consider a different track? Just like the trick as it transpired, the end result must have been utterly different from the magician's initial design.
If only we knew how Halsey disappeared.
Well, that would be nice, but the tunnel only has 3 exits, and none of them seem very likely. And it's not like this is a magic trick where you can just make a real live person disappear. You know, like you did from that water tank, Lynette.
Excuse my interruption, dear opponents, but do you not see that the crowd is growing impatient? There is no greater sin in this opera house than an awkward delay in the performance.
Mă bați. Mă bați la cap. Mă doare
If the
capul.
defense is unable to make further effective arguments, we will move on to the next stage of the trial.
Linny was not in the tunnel at that moment. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. The deceased's name is Cowell, Linny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment. No one entered or left the opera house through its entrances. So, where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? The vase was not broken by chance. It was used to cover important evidence. The water.
Ia auzi, mă. Asta am pus-o din prima. Era maș.
Paimon gets it! It all comes together if Halsey disappeared instead of being kidnapped. Lynette escaped from the water tank, vanishing gradually and leaving only clothes behind. If there's a similar method where a person could be transformed into water.
Oh, just a moment, please. I do hope you know how preposterous you sound at the moment. How could a person ever be transformed into water? This is reality we're talking about here, not some magic trick. Must we really? I should think that of anyone. Your friend Linny already knows this truth very. Magic tricks are ultimately just illusions and misdirection. But Halsey's disappearance is very real. We're talking about two completely different things.
Știi, Florina e simpatică, dar când încearcă să fie naibii, te enervează. Ăla e una de persoană care, dacă e ok, e simpatică, e drăguță, e cute, dar dacă are pe pe tine, îți vine să o omori.
Even so, I trust the traveler's judgment. The truth must be out there somewhere. Perhaps some new line of reasoning may open if we try to gather all the focal points that don't make sense. Since Cal was the deceased, we haven't placed much attention on him. But given that we aren't making much progress with the case, it wouldn't hurt to have a look at his belongings, would it?
People really do come up with all sorts of harebrained schemes when at the end of their rope. The way I see it, your suggestion that we broaden the scope of our investigation is nothing but a tactic for stalling the trial.
Let me kill her.
Nevertheless, I believe that this is a reasonable request on the part of an attorney. Since the trial does indeed appear to be at an impasse, I believe that additional evidence may help us make more progress.
Bă, da, ești femeie, ce stai așa?
Guards, please step into the lounge and examine the personal effects of the deceased, Cowell.
We are still examining the items, but we have already made critical progress that we feel must be shared with everyone post-haste. We discovered several test tubes of fluid within Cowell's baggage, each labeled separately. The notebook in his backpack claims that these fluids are water from the primordial sea.
The primordial sea?
The note's contents also indicate that Cowell belonged to an organization that sells illegal drugs and that he had an accomplice. The notebook has many entries concerning safe usage of these fluids, in which the keyword dissolve appears many times. One of these tubes was labeled Opera Epiclese, along with yesterday's date. It is empty. The notes also state that these dissolution properties work exclusively on people from Fontain. It's likely that Halsey was chosen as some sort of test subject. As such, we believe that the defense's hypothesis is, in fact, supported by sufficient evidence.
You've got to be kidding! People dissolving into water?
Actually, primordial sea, teschi, magic.
Could something so ridiculous actually be true?
Da. Oamenilor, trăim în Tevet. Zei vii among you all. We have visions that give us magical elemental powers. That anything is possible. Shut the fuck up.
Wait a moment. This reminds me of a certain prophecy, but it's just a coincidence, isn't it?
Huh. If people can become water, does that mean that the water tank's real use was as a means to hide water stains? And if Cowell was targeting that girl... Wait just a minute. Could that mean... You two, with me, quick!
Demoiselle, wait! What about your partners?
Let's go. Just trust me.
Order! Order! It is undeniable that further examination of the deceased's personal effects has yielded some surprising results, but we cannot yet verify the veracity of these clues. Still, let us assume that these clues are indeed authentic, albeit with the understanding that Ms. Halsey has yet to be found. Guards, please continue examining the items along these lines. Mr. Linney, it appears your hypothesis is supported by the evidence, so please continue speaking.
Of course. Thank you, Your Honor. If we uphold this hypothesis, I believe that many of this case's seemingly unrelated clues can be connected together.
Right! Like the metal hook! That one didn't make sense at all. this.